8 purple. How are you? Happy Monday to you. Hopefully you enjoyed your week. This is going to be an explanation of the pre-assessment. If you have questions on problems, I'm going to go over each one, and then there will be an office hour later on today for you to ask questions pertaining to the assessment. So the first thing says write the slope of intercept form an equation in each line. So slope-intercept form we know is y equals mx plus b. So we have to fill in for the slope and for the y-intercept. So we want to find those by utilizing the graph. First thing is y-intercept is going to be the easiest. So it crosses the y-axis at 3. So we know that my y-intercept is going to equal 3. And then not only is that a point, but we need a second point. So if we can find a second point somewhere on a grid, and there is a point and there is a point, either one's fine. You can use the two green ones, you can use the first green in the y-intercept, or you can use the y-intercept and the second green one. I don't need text pen, that's not what I want. I want just a traditional pen. So how much do we go up and down? Remember, our slope is rise over run, so we're going to take a point. We're going to see how much we need to go up 1, and then we're going to go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right 5. So my slope is going to equal rise over run, and I'm going to rise up 1, and I'm going to run right 5. Up is positive 1, right is positive 5. So my slope is 1/5, and I fill in that information, my slope and my y-intercept. So let's fill in for m. M is 1/5. Let's fill in for b. B is 3. Now I've written an equation in slope-intercept form for the line containing those points. Number 2, same thing. Let's make this a wee bit smaller. So I'm always going to start off with my template, y equals mx plus b, looking to fill in for these two pieces of information. Let's find the y-intercept. That's always going to be my easiest. 3 again. Woo! Y-intercept equals 3. And now let's pick 2 points, 2 other points. Technically, we only need 1 more other point. Let's just pick 1. Now, let's go and let's start from the y-intercept and go to the green point. So in this case, we have to go down 2, and then we have to go right 1. So my slope equals rise over run. How much do I rise? Meaning up and down. I go down 2. How much do I run? Meaning left and right. I go right 1. Down is negative. Right is positive. And we would simplify that. So here is my slope, -2. Here is my y-intercept, 3. And now let's fill in that into our template. So we get y equals -2x plus 3. And the third one, my y-intercept is going to be 5 this time. And let's pick another point. Any grid mark, that's an okay point, that's an okay point. Either one doesn't matter. You can do the closest or the farthest. Let's do the farthest. Starting from the y-intercept, we're going to go down 2, and then we're going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope equals down 2, right 4, down is negative, right is positive, And remember, we must always simplify that fraction. So in the template, y equals mx plus b, filling in for the slope is -1/2. Filling in for the y-intercept is 5. So that would be my solution. Now, this is probably the easiest of all of them. In our template, we see that we fill in for slope and we fill in for the y-intercept. So we like these. These are the easiest of the easy, 4, 5, and 6. Let's do number 5. Y equals, my slope is 1/2, my y-intercept is -3. Number 6, my slope is -3/2, my y-intercept is 0. Now we should always simplify that. If we have a 0, we can simplify that. Otherwise, we can't combine those two, because 1/2 x and -3 are unlike terms, so we can't combine those. In this one, we can because it's 0. All right, number 7, now they give it to you in standard form, and you convert it to slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, and we have isolated y. Y is isolated, so we have to get y by itself. So what are we going to do in order to get y by itself? 3x is being added to it. It's not being added to it because of that. It's being added to it because this is positive 3x. So what gets rid of a positive 3x? A negative 3x. That leaves me with y equals -3x plus 7. We like these problems too. These are pretty good. Again, we're going to isolate the variable y. This time, 2 things are happening to it. We have the x that is being added to it and the 4 that is being multiplied. We always get rid of things being added and subtracted. That leaves me with 4y equals -x. And then we need to divide by 4. 4 is being multiplied. The inverse of multiplying 4 is dividing 4. Now, we can leave it like this. I'm okay with that. Or you need to understand that that is also equal to that. We see the coefficient of the x in the numerator has a coefficient of -1. And that's where that -1 up here comes from. So understand why I'm able to do that. The 4 is in the denominator. The 4 is in the denominator. The x is in the numerator. The x is in the numerator. So all those are the same. They're equal equations. Now we've got a little bit more going on here. So we've got something being added and subtracted, and then we have something being multiplied. So we're going to get rid of that 5x by subtracting 5x. The inverse of adding 5x is subtracting 5x. That leaves me with -2y equals -5x plus 14. We have to get rid of the -2. The -2 is multiplying, so we have to divide by -2. And remember, this is that tricky part. When we multiply or divide, we have to do everything on both sides. So that gives me 5/2 x, the 2 negatives cancel, minus 7. A positive divided by a negative gives me negative. Still isolating y. 5 is being added to it. Let's subtract 5. We get y equals -5. I like that one. Now it's given to us in point slope form. So we have to do a little bit more work before we move. So first thing is simplify the right side. So we have to distribute that 3/2. Y plus 5 equals 3/2 times x plus 3/2 times 4. So y plus 5 equals 3 halves times x is 3 halves x. 3 halves times 4. So that's 4 is in the numerator. The 2 is in the denominator, so we can cross cancel those. And then we have 3 times 2 is 6. And technically 1 times 1 is 1, so you get 6 over 1, which equals 6. Now, we still have to isolate for y. 5 is being added to it, so we're going to subtract 5. And we're going to line that up with like terms. We have the constant, so y equals 3 halves x plus 1. Number 12, technically this is in point slope form. We would add 3 to both sides. Y equals x plus 3. Remember, our variable has to come first because of our template. It's our variable plus the constant. So we have the variable plus the constant. Very important to recognize that too. All right, we're in the final stretch here. Write the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line through the given point with the given slope. So this is where we start having to do a little bit more work. You're going to be given the equation y equals mx plus b, and we definitely have the slope. So we're given the slope, we're given the slope, but we don't have the y-intercept. So we know that we have to find out what it is. Do we know an x and a y? Do we know a point on the line? Yes, we know a point. Here is an x and a y that is a solution on the line. So we're going to fill in those pieces of information. My y is -3. My m is -2. And that's multiplying by my x, which is -1. And then we have one variable left. So let's take a peek and see where we filled in each of these pieces. My slope is for m, -2. My x is -1. My y is -3. So all I did was fill in those pieces into that template. I'm still utilizing this template and filling in all the pieces. Now I'm going to simplify. -2 times -1 is 2. And now I want to isolate b, so I'm going to subtract 2. I get -5 equals b. Now I have my y-intercept. So my final equation only fills in for m and b. So now I have to rewrite that template filling in for m, which is -2, and b, which is -5. I'm always going to leave the x and y open because there's an infinite number of solutions. And they want to know the general equation in slope-intercept form. So same thing, we take the template, y equals mx plus b. Let's fill in for y. My y is 0. My slope is 3/5. My x is -5. And I'm looking for my b. Let's move that over here. And so we have 0 equals, that 5 is in the denominator, this -5 is in the numerator. We can cross cancel to -1, 5 goes into both of those. And then we have 3 times -1 is -3 plus b. Let's isolate b by getting rid of the -3. And now I have my y-intercept. So I have my slope, which is 3/5, and I have my y-intercept, which is 3. And the last one, so they give us the slope, they give us a point. This is my y, this is my x, my y is 3, my slope is 8, my x is 0, and I like this. 8 times 0 is 0, and then we can just simplify that. 0 plus b is b. Nothing added to b is b itself. And now we can fill in the information. Filling in for the slope, which is 8, and the y-intercept, which is 3. All right, now they don't give us very much here. They give us 2 points. So remember, we're filling in for the slope and for the y-intercept. In all the other problems, they produced the slope for us, except for the graphing one where we had to figure it out. Now, you could plot these points on a graph, but that's not very efficient. We know that we can use the equation y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1 to find slope. X sub 1, y sub 1 means the x in the first point, the y in the first point, the 1 represents the point number, and then this is x sub 2, y sub 2, meaning the x and y value in the second point. So let's take the y sub 2, which is negative 4. Let's subtract the y sub 1, which is negative 1. X sub 2 is 3 minus x sub 1 is 0. These two negatives make a positive. So we're left with negative 4 plus 1 over 3 minus 0 is 3. And we get negative 3 over 3, which is simplifies to negative 1. And now we have the slope. So now it turns into this type of problem, where you're given the slope and a point. Here, we're given a slope and 2 points. So I'm going to just choose this point. It doesn't matter. You can choose either point. And we're going to go back into filling in for mx plus b when given m, x, and y. So my y value is negative 1. My slope is negative 1 also, and my x is 0. So let's simplify. Negative 1 times 0 is 0. 0 plus b is b. So now I have my y-intercept, and I have my slope. So if I fill that in for y equals mx plus b, my slope is negative 1, my b is negative 1, and then I never write negative 1 when it's a coefficient. Hello, that was bad. Negative x minus 1. So when it's a coefficient, we just write the negative sign. Now you would have gotten that same one if you had used the other point. It doesn't change it. So first thing is slope. This is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. Doesn't matter. You could have done this as x2 and this as x1. Doesn't matter. I just do numerical order. So we have y sub 2 minus y sub 1, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. My y sub 2 is 1 minus my y sub 1, which is negative 5. I have x sub 2, which is negative 4, minus my x sub 1, which is negative 1. That becomes 1 plus 5. This becomes negative 4 plus 1. That gives me 6 over negative 3, which simplifies to negative 2. This is my slope. Now I'm going to pick a point, and just to show you it doesn't matter, let's take this point this time. I have my template, y equals mx plus b. Let's plug in my y, which is 1, my slope, which is negative 2, my x, which is negative 4, plus b. Let's simplify. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. Let's isolate b by getting rid of the positive 8. We subtract 8. That gives me negative 7. That's going to be my y-intercept. So my equation is going to be y equals, my slope is negative 2x minus 7. That would be the answer, no matter what point you use, whether you use x sub 1, y sub 1, or x sub 2, y sub 2. And the last one, our slope, x1, y1, x2, y2, 3 minus negative 1 over negative 3 minus negative 4. We get 3 plus 1 over negative 3 plus 4. 4 over positive 1 gives me a slope of 4. And then we pick a point. I'm going to pick the first point. So we get -1 equals 4 times -4 plus b. -1 equals negative, oh, not -8, Mr. Mac. -16 multiplying. We're going to add 16 to both sides. That gives me 15 equals b as my y-intercept. So my formula is going to be y equals 4x plus 15. Good luck. Again, I will post an office hours this afternoon, Monday, to be available for questions. Have a great day.